Welcome to How to Ride a Roller Coaster, where we talk with entrepreneurs on building businesses and brands. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, and don't forget, smash that like button. Welcome to this episode of How to Ride a Roller Coaster. I'm David Ezell, and tonight I'm joined by Benjamin Vann. He's the founder and CEO of Impact Ventures. Impact Ventures' mission is to accelerate and invest in all shades of genius. What's going on?
How's it going, David? Glad to be here.
Man, I am so glad to have you. I mean, it is, like we were talking before we hit record today, I think it's been before COVID since our paths have crossed. And what's going on in the entrepreneur landscape, not only in Dallas, but with your business in general?
Yeah, man, it's definitely been a while, but obviously, you know, we've weathered the storm and we're still here. So that's the biggest win out of all is that, you know, it's been a while pre-pandemic since we last connected, but we're still standing and still helping entrepreneurs grow and get to the next stage. But a lot of exciting things have happened. I think since last we pivoted to the virtual world of entrepreneurship and of just life in general. But for those that are new to our mission and to what we do at Impact Ventures, we're a 501c3 organization that is part accelerator and part integrated capital fund. And so what that means is that similar to what you said around to invest in all stages of genius, you know, we come from the belief that everybody possesses their own unique genius, their own unique abilities, skills, lived experience, right? However, it's access and opportunity that allows that genius to thrive. And so when we think about accelerating companies, investing in companies, we believe that, you know, venture capital is just one tool in the toolbox. And there's a plethora of other tools and financial tools that we should be using to help founders grow, right? That meet the founders where they are, that allow them to get to the next milestone, right? And so I think our traditional capital markets or capitalistic society usually is one-sided when it comes from an investor standpoint, right? The investment always benefits the investor, right? And so we come at it from a different lens, and we provide a various of financial products that meet entrepreneurs where they are. So, of course, we've, you know, now supported over 227 entrepreneurs through our flagship accelerator programs. We expanded our vertical out of just tech into now CPG. So we're focusing on consumer products and good companies as well. We have a number of success stories that are scaling, getting into big box retailers, increasing their doors across the footprint, across the U.S., even the globe. We got one coming that just went Whole Foods worldwide. We also just became a CDFI, specifically a CDVC. CDVC is Community Development Venture Capital, so it is a federal designation of the CDFI fund that allows us to get investment dollars from the federal government and from banks through CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, to be able to deploy that capital in the form of debt or equity. And so it allows us to do some flexible things. You know, I think my background really kind of speaks to the creative, I would say, capital allocation process or deal structuring process. And so it's really fun what we get to do with founders every day.
And so that's a great segue. So tell me more about your background. Is it all entrepreneur full, or is it, I mean, you know, coming from more of the VC side, I mean, it feels like you have to have like just, you know, the numbers and everything else. But yeah, where does that kind of come from?
Yeah, so I have a unique background to be able to speak both finance and both to speak more social justice and social impact. And so I would say by formal training, I come from a background of finance, banking, micro lending, global microfinance, and then from a vocation or just from a passion, was really involved in civic engagement, really involved in economic development. Within my city, served as one of the youngest planning commissions for zoning commission board. 2015, we did a Get Out the Vote campaign and registered over 10,000 people to vote across Dallas County. So I come from this duality of both like, how do we make money and how do we do good at the same time, right? And so, you know, my background, I like to say, I come from either clergy or entrepreneurship. And so I like to say my mission is preaching the gospel of economic justice. So my pulpit just looks different. But I preach the gospel of economic justice and, come from a long line of preachers and ministers. And so, as a man of faith, I like to implement that into my work, because I feel like that's what Jesus called us all to do, is to pursue justice. And he was the ultimate activist in his day. They like to paint him as being tame, but he was the ultimate activist in his day and time. But I started in banking, originally from Kansas. From there, moved to Texas, been here about almost 14 years now. And started Fidelity Investments, moved around within the company, big company, get to learn a lot, great foundation. Last role landed me in Fidelity Charitable, managing a donor advised fund. We work through registered advisor networks to advise high net worth individuals and family offices on their philanthropic giving strategies, which kind of dovetailed into my interest and peak around impact investing. And so saw how people were using DAFs and donor advised funds to invest in for-profit companies, which a lot of people don't know that you can actually do, not for a return, but for an impact perspective. From there, joined a team that was doing global microfinance called Good Returns Group. It was kind of a conglomerate of companies where we had kind of a funding arm, and then we have an operating business called Soap Hope, which was kind of my first stint at CPG, or consumer products, where we were selling all natural products. Started with soap that ended up moving to all different types of green products, environmentally friendly products. And so we ended up raising $1 million gift fund for that, where we would cycle corporate dollars. So it was a corporate impact investing vehicle where instead of giving a grant, corporations could give us a 0 interest rate loan. And then we would cycle that loan to women in developing countries, specifically in South America. And then our media team, we would hire to then go to the villages and tell the story of the impact of the entrepreneurs and what they were able to do with that capital. And then we would brand that story and tell that story on behalf of the corporations in a way that corporations can magnify their impact in a more sustainable way. So instead of giving a grant where that grant goes away, we gave an investment. So when they get the investment back, they could recycle that investment and create more impact, right? And so, So was doing that, and I had a mentor of mine that was actually the first Black VC that I had ever met in my life. So he was a unicorn to me, coming from Kansas. I was like, I've never seen anyone who looked like you and that was doing what you were doing. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And as I always say, is you can't be what you can't see. Right. And so for me, early on, I read about venture capital. I read about private equity in a book that was written by, it was actually a biography, kind of a story of a guy named Reginald F. Lewis, who was one of the first Black billionaires in the U.S. to kind of do a leverage buyout. And his story just resonated with mine on so many levels. And that's when I first started reading about high finance and things like that. So I read that book in college. Went to a conference in my senior year. I was selected to go to Quinnipiac University's GAME forum, which is a global asset management exchange forum, and was just exposed to just all this high finance talk and all this high finance, but no one in the room looked like me. And so I had read about that book. And then later on in adulthood, after getting some, significant working experience, I met, this guy, and he said, in order to figure out if this is what you want to do, he said, get on a plane and go see what people are doing. So I went to the most active ecosystems within the venture capital space, right? Silicon Valley, Oakland, kind of Bay Area, right? And then I went to Boston, New York area, to see what people were doing. And all things led me back to Texas. It was like, okay, at some point, there's going to be a real estate bubble. There's going to be an economic crisis. There's going to be some catastrophic, event, or just a mass exodus of people coming out of those ecosystems into places like Texas. Why? Because we're business friendly.
Right.
The cost of living is cheaper. We're tax friendly in terms of business tax friendly, so corporate tax. You can get talent here from some of the top universities. And as a founder, your runway could just go a lot longer. And you're a big fish, right? You could come here and really be a big fish in a little pond. And we have a huge corporate culture. So if you're a B2B SaaS company, like Texas is somewhere you want to be, especially if you're a fintech, especially if you're healthcare, right? And so I said, well, one of the problems that each one of these ecosystems created, and I said instead of saying faced, I say created, is that they didn't start with intentionality around diversity, equity, inclusion in mind, right? They kind of built up the good old boy system that we know to be the venture capital that started with, the semiconductor industry, right? And they didn't prioritize equity and bringing people into the fold. So now they're trying to go back and undo, everything that was done that was wrong. And I was like, well, if people are moving to Texas, when they come here, they need to have a place to feel like they belong. They need to have a place that sees them for their unique experience. And that's what we set out to create in 2016, was that, like, if you build it, people will come, and people are moving here every day. And when they come here, they want to know, where are all the VCs? Where are all the investors? Where are all the entrepreneurs? And so that's what we set out to do. And that's kind of how I got into this space. Whole nother other situation around volunteerism and how I got, connected in this position. But that's the kind of the short and skinny.
Man, and I love what you said, about if you want to see what it's like, get on a plane and go see what it's like. Because I feel like so many times, we kind of have this idea of what we think it might be like. But until you can get there, until you can see what it actually looks like and feels like and smells like and what people are talking about, and where you can kind of wrap your mind around what this not only looks like now, but where it might be going. I think again, like you said, I think that's fantastic advice especially for yourself and everything that you're doing, but for all the people that are wanting to do their own thing, wanting to start their own thing and build it. And secondly, you nailed it when it comes to people leaving some of those other ecosystems and coming here. We talked a little bit before, we hit record tonight about just the ecosystem of startups here in Dallas. And having done Founders Live in the past, I always have people come to me and they're like, hey, this is great. I've met people, I've gotten introduced to people, that kind of thing. But now what? Where are the investors? Who's going to be at these events that I need to know? I have this business that I'm trying to grow. We moved from San Francisco. I'm ready to go. Who do I talk to? And like you said, it's kind of fragmented. And if you kind of don't know where to go, then you don't know where to go. So I love the stuff that you guys have been doing. Like I said, we've been in contact with each other since prior to COVID. And I just think that you guys are doing such a great job in the community. Every single startup event, Dallas Startup Week, everything that we go to, you guys are represented. And I think that's just a testament to all the stuff that you put forward, all the way that you talk. Just in hearing you talk now, it just feels like I'm learning. I love that. I can tell that you're a learner, and I love that you just feel like a sponge, like you're soaking everything in, but you also, it's not just, I want to soak it in to keep it in. I know, just having watched you and how you interact in LinkedIn and all of that kind of stuff, that you put it right back out. It soaks in, but it's like, all right, I've got it. I'm going to put it back out so that other people can take my knowledge too.
Yeah. To one of the things I mentioned around, like, just being aware and being immersed, right? It's about immersing yourself in what you do, right? And when you do that, you can feel the ebbs and flows, and you can feel the market shifts. You can feel the changes. And that's one of the things that we've always tried to stay on top of in terms of what do founders really need right now? Like, what are the questions that the founders are asking amongst themselves that sometimes investors aren't in the room, or they're not privy to?
What would some of those questions be? Like, what would some of those questions be that they may not ask an investor because maybe they don't want to sound stupid? I should know this. I'm in the wrong place. What are some of those questions that you hear that they may bring to you, or that they kind of talk about amongst themselves?
What is venture
Where
capital?
to start?
Is venture capital right for me? What type of capital should I be pursuing? How much should I raise? Do I even need to raise? Where are the B2B opportunities right now? One of the things we noticed coming out of COVID, and with the explosion of AI, is that COVID uncovered the fact, it shined a light, a scary light, I would say, a really, really bright light, on those founders that were spending most of their time trying to find investors, instead of building a great company that people loved and wanted to buy from, right?
Interesting.
And when I say that, what I mean is that when COVID happened, the folks that were building and had customers, like, it didn't really affect them, right? Or maybe it did, but they were able to pivot and kind of weather the storm. But those startups that were just focusing on, I need an investor, no one will invest in me, or where are all the VCs that were focused on them, those folks had to go get a job, right? Those folks had to quit and maybe pivot and maybe try to do something else, right? And so there's this idea that if you're not close to your customer or close to your market, like you can't prepare for the shifts, you can't prepare for the changes and the pivots that are gonna come inevitably. As we were talking about the peaks and the valleys, right? The roller coaster of entrepreneurship. If you're not talking to your community, then you won't be prepared to make that shift when they did. And so one of the things that we uncovered during the pandemic is that we're all sitting at home, and I probably caught myself, you probably caught yourself doing this a couple times, is because we were at home, shut in and locked in our homes, we had more time, and we were probably browsing the back of our, bathroom spray. Let's just say bathroom air freshener or toilet paper or like whatever our everyday consumer product stuff that we were probably taking the time to look and read the ingredients and be like, oh, I didn't know that this had this stuff in it, or I didn't know that this. So I'm getting at, and of course I'm using it in a joking manner, but what happened is we saw the shift in consumer behavior in terms of their willingness to try new products, right?
Yeah.
And so you saw these long-standing companies like Johnson & Johnson and Unilever and Procter & Gamble and these big companies that have always had the market share. You've seen a lot of indie brands and a lot of new brands and new innovations come into the market, and people were willing to try. They had idle time, they had idle hands. So guess what? Everyone was staring at their computer, and what were they doing? They were shopping on Amazon. They were shopping on different, And so next thing you know, I mean, how many packages do you see of Amazon come to your porch?
Oh man.
From either you or your wife. I don't know who's the bigger spender, but
yeah. I wish I could say it was me, but it is definitely not. It's a new package every hour,
right,
it seems like.
Right. So this behavior change in consumer, right, created a market opportunity for consumer products, consumer goods. So for us, we saw the opportunity. We saw that founders were looking to try and build new products that were physical products and maybe not technology, because the investment capital was drying up after COVID, right? So okay, well, if I can't go get a VC for an investor, let me try this product where I can go find a direct customer, right, that's going to buy my product. So that caused us to kind of be aware of that market shift and figure out how can we surround the resources, how can we build vertical around this CPG industry. So we're excited to launch some new things around that vertical CPG, which can include food and beverage, home goods, cleaning products, retail, fashion, beauty, like everything that you can find at your big box retailer. And folks have had a lot of success because, again, it goes back to genius, right? People that come from different lived experiences, different cultural backgrounds, they're going to produce different products, right? They're going to produce different things because of their lived experience, because of their taste, because of their culture. And that is a market opportunity for investors. And unfortunately, there's not enough investors that see that as an opportunity. So that's where we come in to play to help fill that gap.
And do you guys kind of coach them through? So that whole conversation about, do I need venture capital? When do I need venture capital? Because it does seem like there are a lot of entrepreneurs that I've talked to along the way that feel like they're kind of on the pitching circuit. They're focused more on, I've got a meeting. And that's what they're doing, as opposed to focusing in on their business and then using outside funding or whatever the case when it is most beneficial for their business. Do you guys do a lot of coaching through that type of process so that they can, or you can kind of get into their head? You can know where they are, what their worries are and all of that kind of stuff along the way. But it's like, hey, we're your light post as you're going through this.
Yeah, we have a very intensive accelerator program. I will say, it's, founders are committing anywhere from 10 to 15 hour a week, to the program. They're doing 2-day sessions, 2-hour sessions per week, plus meeting with their lead advisors, plus meeting with office hours with us. So it's pretty intensive in terms of the program. And we're helping not only from a learning standpoint, education standpoint, but from a doing, right? And so when we say that, we look at, for example, we have a capital readiness program that's going on right now. And one of the top challenges that I see as an investor and a lender when I'm talking to entrepreneurs, regardless of if you're a product-based business looking for, a debt loan or revenue-based financing, or you're a tech company looking for VC funding, is in the diligence process, when an investor is asking for certain documentation in that due diligence process, 9 times out of 10, founders don't have a deal room, or founders don't have a repository where they know where all their documentation is. And oftentimes when you ask them, hey, I need your financials, or I need your projections, or I need a roadmap, like it takes them 2-3 weeks to produce those documents. Well, if you understand the VC game, you know it's a numbers game, and the lending game. It's, from the capital allocator standpoint, it's a numbers game. So while you're waiting 2 or 3 weeks or more weeks, there's another founder that just had an interview with the same company, right? And now they have to evaluate, okay, we just, we saw 250 deals this quarter, or maybe even this month, right? And we got to get 5 for this month, right? And so the longer you take to get those documents, to get the financials, to get those things ready, right? Someone else could be coming in, right? And you missing an opportunity, right? So one of the things we talk about in the capital access program is their deliverables and the questions that they're asking. They're producing things that investors are going to ask for anyway. So they're not doing homework for the sake of us to say, like, do this deliverable because we want to feel important. Like, no,
busy work.
You should be doing this in your business anyway, because you're going to need it down the line if you're going to go out and pursue outside capital.
Are the majority of y'all's clients and the people that you work with, are they Texas, Dallas, or is it just kind of a mismatch of everywhere?
Yeah, so we're about 80% DFW based, and I would say 20% US based. The US based in our alumni now is from about 9 different states. And so we've been in talks with some other markets on expansion as well that are kind of in the works. So
nice.
Ultimately we want to be a US based focused company that's based in Dallas. But it takes time to develop them and align funders and all those things that come with trying to scale, just like an entrepreneur, right?
Right. So what does your kind of outlook for DFW when it comes to the entrepreneurial investor scene? What is kind of your 30,000 foot approximation of where things stand and how the ecosystem looks right now? Maybe as compared to other places that, people may flee to, thinking that they have to go there in order to get a deal or whatever.
I think it's growing. I think investors, if you're coming from either coast and you're looking at how do I get, obviously there's things like valuations are lower, right, in Texas, right? So you might get a same company in a vertical that you can get for a cheaper, right? Because it's in Texas, the valuation isn't inflated because it's in Silicon Valley or it's in Boston or New York. So if you're an investor, you can get cheaper equity here for a great company, right? And leveraging your network and your expertise to help that company grow. You can go a lot further here in Texas. I'll also say that there's some industries that have been bubbling up, right? You got, I know New York is kind of like the financial capital of the world, which will always, be in terms of U.S. based, but Dallas is not far behind from the resources that are being invested here. There's a lot of wealth here. There are, I don't know the exact number. I want to say there are 33 or 34. There's less than 35 billionaires in DFW, right? There's over, I want to say 1,700, maybe 1,800 like millionaires. So there's a lot of money here. So there's opportunity in wealth tech, right? There's opportunity here in fintech to grow. And I've been able to see it both on the ground level and also like from where we are now, being a part of Venture Dallas, right? And bringing kind of that ecosystem of investors together across the city, but also trying to attract other investors to come here. We were just awarded a big federal grant in the healthcare space and semiconductor space. Here in Dallas, there's a cluster of folks that have been working around that. So you have these pockets of, healthcare and conductor and supply chain and fintech that's popping up. Plug and Play Ventures just opening up 2 offices, not one. They saw fit to do 2 offices. Literally,
get that first one out of the way. Let's do 2.
Literally are 20 minutes apart, like McKinney and Frisco. And so Plug and Play Ventures, which is, if anyone knows the ecosystem, they know Plug and Play.
Yeah.
Huge player in the market, saw fit to launch 2 offices in Dallas, Fort Worth, in Frisco, and in McKinney. So I think the opportunity is right for investors to come here and still kind of be bi-coastal or still keep their presence in other places. I just think that they would get, in terms of being able to attract deals, right? Like just on Sand Hill Road in Silicon Valley, there's over 500 VC firms.
It's crazy.
Right. And so probably even more. And so there is an opportunity here to attract some of the best deals by coming to Texas and planting roots here and being a part of the ecosystem here. So I see a ton of opportunity. Again, I mentioned the corporate culture, also our government. I'd say like our quasi government. So like our intermediaries, like our economic development corporations and some of our chambers, like they're actively looking to plug early stage founders into their ecosystem, right? Like a lot of stuff that McKinney Economic Development is doing with their innovation fund, literally like giving startups a grant to come and office there at the city and take advantage of all their resources, plug into the bigger companies that are there. So historically, Frisco, Plano, McKinney, historically Dallas has been, their economic development corporations have been charged with attracting larger companies like, okay, Series B, Series C. Okay, now you're about to start significantly saving on taxes and headcount. So you want to move your offices from California to Texas, right? Well, now there's an opportunity for those Series B, Series D companies that are moving here for them to plug in those early stage seed and Series A type companies into their ecosystem, right? And so that's what they're trying to do here. So it's about getting connected, it's about having the give first mindset again, like getting back to that, and knowing that like whatever you give, you're going to get back tenfold. So,
and I think that's really well said, especially within like the DFW entrepreneurship and startup community. You know, I've been to a few other places where it feels like when you go to some of these events and whatnot, everybody's a little, I don't want to kind of let you in, that kind of thing.
Little cagey.
But it doesn't, but it doesn't feel like that here. Like it feels like everybody really does just kind of open up their network, their LinkedIn, whatever the case is, or before you leave, I've got to make sure that you're in connection with this person because I think this person can help. So that was a great segue into the next question. If there's an entrepreneur that say is moving here, have a business, growing a business, what are some of the first things that you would do if you were them just so that they could start to get plugged in?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it depends on what type of business, that they're offering. But, since we know each other from the VC kind of space, we'll just focus on tech companies, right? If I'm a tech company and I'm moving here, what I found is that most cities now are establishing these intermediaries. Let's call them, for example, Venture Dallas. I literally just met a guy on LinkedIn today that runs Venture Miami, right? I know another one of my friends, Joey Womack with Goody Nation, that is a part of Venture Atlanta, right? So a lot of these big market cities are standing up these kind of like, beacons that say, hey, like come here, like this is where the investors are going to be, So if I'm an early stage company and I'm moving my resources here, I first want to know like who the players are, like who are the accelerators, who are the incubators, what are the universities doing, what are they talking about, what are they researching? I want to know what progressive cities are moving in my space. I want to know what data and reports are out there about the city and innovation, right? The Dallas Regional Chamber provides a report where you can see the deals that were happening. You can see how much venture funding is going into certain sectors year over year. So I would be looking at that data. I would be looking at the research and say, okay, who's investing in my space? Who's doing business in my space? And trying to figure out who those players are and how I can get in front of them to add value and ultimately build the ecosystem.
Man, that's great. So what's next? Where do you see yourself? Where does Impact Ventures, where do you guys kind of go from here?
Yeah, right now we're just trying to double down on driving innovation from a sector perspective. With still holding true to our lens for equity and inclusion. And I think sometimes what got lost in translation through George Floyd, now through I'm not sure if you're familiar with Fearless Fund based in Atlanta that's being sued for in a short the reverse racism, right? And I think what's got lost sometimes in translation is that diversity is good for business, right? Like there's tons of studies that show how diverse teams produce better results, right? And
No
better
doubt.
returns. And
No
so
doubt.
I think for us, it's doubling down on that and getting back to how do we disrupt industry innovation? How do we create industry within these innovation sectors by still driving diversity, but leading with driving innovation, right? And driving new products, new services. And that's what we're seeing our founders do. And so for us, it looks like really getting very clear about the founders and what we're looking for in terms of investment. We've supported over 200 and something founders now. I think it's like 227 in our alumni now. We're on our 9th accelerator cohort. So we're about to hit our 10th accelerator cohort. We've gotten pretty good at running accelerators, And so now it's like, okay, how do we support those companies? We got 220 something in our alumni. Now it's like, okay, we built this pipeline, but like, how do we get these pipelines to the next level? How do we get them to Series A? How do we get them, to scale and across multiple markets with their product? So really, it's about how do we service our companies and double down on the impact.
Love that.
So
love that. It all comes back to what you mentioned a second ago when it comes to giving first. It's always coming back to the value. It's coming back to the value. And I love that you guys are doing that. You have the pipeline of the companies you've already worked with, but now it's let's take that spotlight and put it back on them and figure out how we can help them go from where they are now to the next place so that collectively it just makes us all bigger. Well, Benjamin, this has been fantastic, man. How can people keep up with you, keep up with Impact Ventures, get in line for the next accelerator program, whatever the case may be? Tell me all the places.
Yeah, so you can go find us anywhere on all your social media. Impact Ventures, Impact Venture Co. is our tagline. You can find me personally on LinkedIn. Just look at my name, Benjamin J. Vann. I'm trying to get more into writing and thought leadership, but again, we were talking about our kids earlier. I got a 2-year-old and a soon to be 2-year-old, and I got a 3-year-old, and it's just hard to find time. But if it's worth doing, we'll find time to do it. So I'm trying to get more into blogging and vlogging and kind of doing this podcast thing. You can follow us on Facebook Instagram, LinkedIn. To find updates on our upcoming info session. We do host a monthly info session and a rolling application. Every Wednesday, we host an event called 1 Million Cups. You probably heard of it. It's a program and event established by Kauffman Foundation. And so ecosystems all across the U.S. are sharing 1 million cups of coffee while they're listening to their fellow founders present their companies and their ideas while networking and hopefully find your first investor, your first, hire or your first co-founder. Really great experience. But we do that every Wednesday at 9 a.m. You can find us there. That's how to find us. So if you're looking for us, we're looking for you.
Heck yeah. And you're right. I mean, for anybody that hasn't been to a 1 Million Cups event, they're fantastic. It's last I went, is it still 2 companies and it's 8 minutes, 10 minutes? How much does each one get?
I think it's 7 to 10 minutes each company to pitch, and then there's like a 10-minute kind of Q&A / feedback session.
Gotcha.
So it really is great. It's an intimate group, and so it's really not about pitching, but more presenting to get feedback from your peers. And so really great opportunity to kind of meet folks in the startup space.
Absolutely. So anybody listening, if you are in that space, if you are an entrepreneur and you want to get more connected, make sure to go check out, Ben and everything going on at Impact Ventures, and especially with 1 Million Cups. And yeah, man, I will have all of this stuff linked in the show notes so that people can follow you, keep up with all the awesome stuff you're doing. And I just appreciate it. And I will let you get back to the kiddos, because it's almost that time.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that they are, if they're anything like mine, they are just like, where's dad? Where's dad? Let's go. It's wrestle time or something.
Definitely. Well, appreciate you having me, David. I enjoyed it.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a comment below and don't forget, hit that subscribe button. Until next time.